Hey y'all, it's Kobe R. Rice, and I'm back again with another weekly creative update. And guys, oh my gosh, finally, graduate school is over. Like, officially over. Officially. I had to give a final exam to some of the students that I'm TAing for yesterday. And I had those exams graded literally by the end of the day. I had a 15-page annotated paper I had to do. And with that, plus some like little smaller things, graduate school for this semester is finally over. I am so excited, so amped. As a matter of fact, I have just ripped down my last post-it note. You guys were able to witness that. Basically, along with all my other projects in process on my wall over here, I have my graduate school stuff wall, which has like all the assignments that are due for all of my classes this semester. And there were like 50 different assignments. It was pretty insane. But I have finally been able to rip down the last assignment, which was the manifesto that I had due today. And, I guess there's not really much to say aside from the fact that I'm incredibly elated. I'm super excited and amped to get into this summer. But of course, I'm going to first engage in some serious self-care and some relaxation, starting with Altered Carbon, which you guys know I'm in love with as a franchise. And I actually just, as a treat to myself and as a reward to myself, I just ordered the Altered Carbon trilogy. And I am super excited to get into that probably towards the end of the week, because really all I want to do at this point is like just collapse and sleep and eat and just take some time to like really reflect on this semester. And I'm going to do a little bit of that in this podcast, but for the most part, a lot of this reflection will take place on its own, on just basically like me being in my own space. Man, a lot of people are trying to contact me right now while I'm trying to put this podcast on. Let me call you back in an hour. Sorry, guys. This is my mom. Because she knows I just finished class, so she's calling to say hey. And I just want to let her know I'm recording a podcast. I can't do it, Mom. Not right now. Okay. A lot of that reflection on how the semester has been going will take place, mostly with me and somewhere, on the blog. Like, this actual podcast is going to be a little bit of reflection, but not too much, because I did that in the last podcast. But mostly I want to talk about my goals for the next quadrimester, which includes pretty much the entire summer, my entire break. And that is essentially what I'll be doing and gunning for from May 1st, which is already passed, all the way until August 31st. And so that's what this podcast is about. But I did want to get into sort of like the end of the semester celebration with you guys really quickly. So graduate school is finished. I am elated. I am excited. And I guess the only two things I want to talk about with regard to grad school this past week is that my final project that I had to do was a 15-page artist manifesto. And at first I had all these different sections to it and I really wanted to go deep into it. And then I realized for each of these sections, there is like at least 15 to 30 pages of things I need to say. And I realized that this manifesto is going to be way too long and way too involved for an end of the semester project. Let me just do the bare minimum assignment. So I picked one of the sections of my supposed manifesto and elaborated. But the whole reason why I'm bringing it up is because I think at the end of this second year, out of 3 years for this program, and for me personally, the 2018, specifically December 2018, will be year 5 with me fully being sort of out in the world as an artist and as an aspiring artist entrepreneur. So, the time for reflection on the past 5 years and on who I am as an artist is definitely nigh. And so I'm excited to have been able to sit down and really think about what's important to me as an artist, what sort of things I want to leave behind me when I finally leave this world, what kind of legacy I want to build, what kind of future and creative life I want to build for myself. as an artist. And this manifesto has really helped me to sort of dig into one of those main portions. And the main thing that I focused on for the manifesto is artist entrepreneurship. And you guys know I'm a huge fan of that. My entire tagline is keep it indie, right? So I am just so about artists, especially owning their own piece of the pie, owning their own real estate, whether that means that you're owning like a digital real estate, just with your own website where you publish your own stuff or whatever. If you own a brick and mortar, if you own a studio, if you just, are creating intellectual properties that you're just putting out into the world. I just feel like it's so important for artists to give themselves permission to be the captains of their own destiny and to just be in charge of where their careers are going. And, so I wrote about that, and this is no surprise to you guys, but it really helped me to put into words what my entire purpose and premise is as an artist. And so that was really just, really elating. And so that was a really nice way to end not only the semester, but the second year of my graduate school program, especially being that I'm going into year number 3, where I'll be working mostly on my thesis, directing another show, and then also just doing one more class that will hopefully fulfill my personal goals as a screenwriter director. So we'll see how that works out. Plus I have my comps next year, but hopefully that won't be too crazy. Okay, so that is basically graduate school right now. There's not really much else to say about it, except I am so glad that it's over. And I will talk to you guys a little bit about like the theme of today's episode, which deals specifically with personal standards and boundaries. And I feel as though, looking back over the entire semester, I think that in a lot of ways, I was able to define what my personal standards for success and creativity were. But at the same time, I did struggle a lot with putting up boundaries. And I think that that's really the major lesson that I walked away from this semester, that I walked away with, this semester, was that it is so important to acknowledge and to recognize when someone is really not respecting your boundaries and they're not respecting you as a person. When someone is treating you as though you are an extension of themselves or their egos or their reputations or their programs or their roster or whatever purpose it is that you serve in their lives, when somebody is seeing you more as an appendage than as an individual person, then that in many ways is when boundaries can be crossed. Is what I discovered. And I spent a lot of time this semester establishing myself as a person as opposed to an appendage or as an add-on or as a representative or avatar of someone's career and reputation. And I have a feeling that I'll be continuing to fight this battle throughout the remainder of my tenure here. And it's not a battle that I'm really looking forward to, but luckily, because I have, like I told you guys, completely front-loaded my entire graduate school career in the first 2 years of being here, the third year is going to be relatively relaxed and I wouldn't say a cakewalk per se, but a lot lighter than it has been. And I know for a fact, I am not the only person in my group, amongst my colleagues, who feel elated and who feel that way. I think in a lot of ways we've all been put through certain ringers and have all experienced some boundary issues around certain projects and certain situations here. And I think this summer for me personally is going to be about reclaiming my space, reclaiming my boundaries, reclaiming self, taking care of myself, loving myself, falling back in love with all the things that I love to do, falling back in love with me. Not that I'm really ever out of love with me, but sometimes I feel, discouraged, or I feel like a lack of support or isolated, and I do have to sort of take time to retreat and to recharge. So that's what I'll be doing during the summer, and I'll get more into that when it comes to my summer goals. But as for what else happened during this week, I ended up working on 4 IPs and making some intellectual property. For those of you who are not particularly familiar, or if you're just joining us, I worked on 4 IPs this past week. And one of them, The Camille, which is a short story coming up in the 2054 sci-fi anthology, is finally finished, not just in the writing of it, not just in the paper edit, but I was finally able to apply the paper edits to the actual file on my hard drive. So my story is literally geared up, ready to go. I submitted it to the rest of my crew. We're going to give one of us an extension to May 15th to apply certain concepts and proofreading updates to theirs, and then we are pretty much hitting the ground running with releasing and advertising. So I'm super excited. For those of you who are on my list who have been waiting for this, thank you so much for being so patient and kind and wonderful. If you're just hearing about this, it's going to be a very, very meaty, delicious, wonderful collection of, sci-fi stories. And we are already talking about the sequel and the sequel to the sequel. So this apparently will be an ongoing thing for the four of us, because apparently it's working out pretty well. And I'm really excited about it. And now that I have finished my actual edits and my final draft, I am going to be heading up the marketing endeavors for 2054. And so that's going to include some really great giveaways and things like that. So just stay tuned if you're interested in taking a sneak peek at what we've been working on. Definitely you'll get to see that coming up in the next week or so. So that's one IP that is finally finished, at least on my end, and is coming into the publication and marketing process. The second IP that I worked on this week I worked on it more in terms of an administrative process, or as an administrator in an administrative role. Let me get my English together, y'all. And that is the work on the Pendragon TV series that I'm developing in conjunction with another colleague of mine who's great. I love her. She's amazing. And we're going to be working on Pendragon together this summer, which is essentially like a new, improved, very sexy, very dark reinterpretation of King Arthur's legends. And so we're going to be working on that. But basically what I did this week is that we just discussed the different directions for Pendragon and the different structures for Pendragon, and how we can sort of make the series recognizable, but also make it very different in how it's executed. And I have a very particular aesthetic. You guys know that I love dark, gritty, noir, and witty. That is how I roll. That is my brand. And so I'll be bringing a lot of that into Pendragon. And we're essentially right now in the planning and research phases. I mean, at this point, probably as of early next week, we'll be getting together and just doing a whole resume of every single King Arthur TV and feature film adaptation that has ever existed, so that we understand how many have been done, when they were done, who was in it, how highly were they rated, what the series premises were, what the stories were that were told, what research and source materials were used, because there are a lot of people who have written King Arthur's legends, not just Mallory, but a lot of other people who were alive during that day who wrote different chapters of the stories and different interpretations. So we just need to do all of our background research and figure out how we're going to make Pendragon stand out from the rest, and how we're going to pivot Pendragon and basically position it in the market. Because it's at this point, I feel like it's pretty easy to give another King Arthur's Legends adaptation like the eye roll, because people feel as though it's been done to death. And I want to tap into that public knowledge of King Arthur's Legends, but we really collectively want to give people what they haven't seen before. So, yeah, I'm excited to work on that. So just administrative stuff and discussions and research goals were discussed around that IP. IP number 3, though, is something that came up more recently that I've been thinking about for the past semester, but I shelved temporarily because I wanted to work on Pendragon. And that is the idea of writing a TV miniseries on Morian, again, who is the Black Knight of the Round Table. And This actually was something that you guys know I've been interested in doing, because I was working on that storyline for the recent production that I helped put together this past spring. But when I presented our TV project Pendragon to the committee as a part of future directions of where I want to go as a dramaturg and as a director, the committee immediately jumped on the Maureen idea and felt as though we should focus on that, because they felt as though the Black Knight of the Round Table is a interesting story that people very rarely, if ever, talk about, that most people don't really know about. And on top of that, with the current climate, with diversity properties going on, basically on the rise, and with the success of Black Panther and all these other properties that are being brought up, they feel as though this story is a great pivot, is a great way to pitch and present, my personal brand. And if my co-writer wants to work on it, then it would be our personal brand, especially as it's an amazing story. It has a lot of action, adventure, awesomeness. I have ideas as to how to make the story in the series itself a lot more theatrical, or I guess it wouldn't be theatrical in this sense, but a lot more cinematic, let's put it that way. And we're really excited to include the Maureen storyline, or the Maureen TV miniseries, as a part of what we'll be working on during the summer. Although personally, I feel as though I'll probably be doing most of the work on that, which is totally fine for me. Like, I'm excited to headline that series. So what I did this past week, just thinking about what my faculty and the committee have been saying about the state of Hollywood right now, I have already sat down and thought about I think I have 8 episodes right now, which could be 10 episodes. I could extend it into 10, but I've sketched out a total of 9 episodes. So I'm sort of in between, probably going for a 10th. But I've sketched out a total of 9 episodes, just basically like a list of titles and a list of what happens in each episode. And I realized that there are some gaps that need to be filled according to the source material, and I do need to go back into the source material to write a really great script for each one. But that's basically what I did. I started outlining and sketching out the Maureen TV miniseries, so I'm super excited. And what I would love to happen for that series is that I take that and somehow, either by releasing that series first or by releasing that series alongside Pendragon, find a way to incorporate Maureen, that specific Maureen from that TV miniseries. I want to incorporate him into the overall Pendragon world and the lore in a way that he's never been integrated before. So I think Pendragon for us is really going to be a very in-depth mining of stories that are very either hidden, erased, silenced, or very rarely told. I think that is going to be an angle that we are going to take. And then we're also going to basically look into, sorry, I'm scratching my knee here. We're going to look into telling the sort of darker side of the Arthurian legends, because a lot of people really focus on all these knights being noble and wonderful and kind and everything like that, which is great. We will have some noble knights, but there was a lot of dark stuff that was happening in these Arthurian legends that people just want to gloss over, and I'm not really about that. Again, dark, gritty, noir, witty. That's the brand. On top of it, we've seen putting proof that audiences nowadays don't mind darker, grittier fantasy, obviously with the success of Game of Thrones. And I'm not saying that Pendragon will be the next Game of Thrones per se, but there will be a pretty much massive chasm, a massive chasm in our fantasy programming when Game of Thrones finally goes off air. So definitely want to take advantage of that. And I think we're in a position to develop a really great property. And even if it doesn't make it in Hollywood or whatever, it's something that we can still, because I believe in transmedia, it's something that we can still retool into like a serialized series, a serialized novel, a novel series. So you guys know me. I'm never one to let an idea go to waste. So we're working on that. And then the fourth IP I was working on this past week, just sort of off and on, is that I continued sketching out the episode list, the descriptions, and the beat sheets for the Ezekiel TV series season 1. And I've just been in super serious, like, just cray TV development mode, and I'm just loving it. I'm feeling it. This is probably the farthest I've gotten away from my deep focus mentality since I've been back in graduate school this semester. But I still feel as though the way that I'm developing, all of these properties, they're sort of very parallel to one another. I'm hitting certain stages of the process and reinforcing my knowledge of each television series by engaging with a certain process of developing television. So yeah, it's just really fun. The only thing that's missing from this whole thing is getting paid to develop these things. But right now, I do realize that I take a lot of joy from literally building a TV series from scratch. And I know for sure that in terms of both writing and directing and producing, that I really want to make 80% of my work in TV, particularly in binge-worthy television, like what you see on Netflix. Like, that's what I want to do with my career, period. Feature films, as I mentioned in my last podcast, will still be a part of that. But even my feature film ideas now are becoming basically television series ideas, except for Sandman. I think I want to do Sandman as a full-on feature film. But, for example, like, I think that, so a lot of the feature films that are out right now that I haven't written, I think can also be retooled into TV series. Like, I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy and all the associated materials around that can be retooled into a TV series. I think that the Purge dystopian thriller trilogy, which is now actually getting a prequel, which I love, a feature film prequel, can also be retooled into a television series. I mean, I think that TV is where it's at right now, but that's just my personal opinion. Either way, I'm really loving it. So, okay. Next, what I did is that I continued to work on developing the potential prequel trilogy plotline for the Asylum series. And at this point in time, I feel pretty confident, I'll put that in quotes, that this is ultimately going to become a 2-part trilogy, like literally like trilogy 1 with the 3 books in it, and then trilogy 2, because at some point there's a sort of like a genre shift and like a focus shift, and I just don't feel right about the current structure of the series right now. So it will probably become a 2-part trilogy with a prequel, so that would be 7 books in total. And then I talked to you guys like weeks and weeks ago about the In-Betweeny series, wherein I would have a series of novellas that would come between the books in the second trilogy. So we have Asylum, Bedlam, and Hoodlum in trilogy number 2. And so the In-Betweeny novella series would be called After Asylum, and it would literally come after the book Asylum is released. And then the In-Betweeny novella series number 2 would be called Beyond Bedlam, and that would be released right after Bedlam comes out. And it's supposed to detail the events that happen between Asylum and Bedlam, and then between Bedlam and Hoodlum. So that entire property has just gotten completely out of control. But I feel like it's out of control in a good way. I just really love it. I don't know. I just love doing this, guys. Like, this is like, I know it doesn't feel like this because I'm really tired looking right now, but I love writing. I love world building. I love creating franchises and building brands. Like, I really, really enjoy it. And I'm just glad that even though I'm sort of dabbling right now, or I've dabbled in the past week in a whole bunch of different projects, I still feel very attached to my deep focus mentality, believe it or not, because that has really like seen me through for the most part. And in between like the big projects that I finish, I'll like dabble and do some little minor stuff for other things because it just helps me to cleanse my palate. But right now, even though I'm world building and plotting for all these other things, and I'm just deciding sort of what's happening with my novels, what's happening with my TV properties, my main focus is going to be one novel at a time, specifically starting with Hollow Point. So now that the Camille is pretty much off my plate, intellectually and mentally, I can finally get back into Hollow Point, which is great because I've had the entire semester to like ruminate and think on Hollow Point and its successor, The Haunt, which is book 4. I almost put up a 3. 4. I can count. And so, yeah, the storyline has really just been like sitting and marinating and ruminating in my brain the whole semester. So I feel very ready to go as soon as I like take a nap, essentially. I also, in the past week, I really put balls to the wall with developing and finalizing. I say that with quotes because my portfolio was never finalized, but I put together my portfolio list finally, and I now need to translate that list into an actual page on my website and into an actual, document, or rather it would be a binder at this point, of things that I've done, because apparently I've done a lot, guys. I didn't realize how much I've done since I decided to jump fully into my artistic identity, and that was in fall of 2012. And then if the winter of 2013 is when I published really my very first intellectual property. But between then and now, whether I've been developing properties, products, projects, scripts, etc., I've gotten a lot done, a lot of stuff done. And so at this point, I've published 2 novels and a couple of anthologies, one of which is out of print, another which is forthcoming. I'm trying to get at least, and this is going to sound insane, but 4 more novels out. Let's aim for 3, really, because that was the original goal this year, was to get 3 novels out. But 4 is like the nice, lovely stretch goal, right? So I want to get 4 more novels out, hopefully, by the end of 2018. I've gotten 3 audiobooks out. I basically, over the course of 6 years, I started 2 podcasts and YouTube channels, and then I retired them. And then I started 2 others, the Be Badass podcast and this podcast that you guys are listening to now. I also started a couple of YouTube channels dealing with media crit and also book reviews. And speaking of reviews, I went to see Infinity War a few days ago. I can't even remember because I'm so tired and I haven't really slept well. But I owe you guys, because I promised this, an Infinity Wars review. And I have a lot to say about Infinity War. Great movie. I enjoyed it. But just in short, and no spoilers here. But I was a little underwhelmed, and I'm not really sure if that's the movie's fault or if it's my fault, because I've just been waiting literally since I was like 10 years old for this very moment. And so it's sort of like I held Infinity War to an impossible standard, like literally an impossible standard. But it still it was still an amazing movie. I guess I just was like not as blown away as I wanted to be, Like at this point, and now this is going to sound like blasphemy completely, The Dark Knight blew me away 1,000 times more than Infinity War. Let's put it that way. But that doesn't mean that Infinity War was a bad movie. It was a great movie. But this is not the podcast where I review that. But I will have that ready for you guys by the end of the week. I'm crossing my fingers, hopefully. So back to like the portfolio. So there are a lot of things that I've been doing since 2012. I produced a game writing portfolio that was over 100 pages long, which is like amazing. And those were for 3 different games, one of which, actually 2 of which, I guess all 3 of which actually are first-person shooters. But I wrote for Fallout Lone Star, doing character missions and quests. I did character missions, quests, and dialogue for another indie game called Status Quo: Chronicles of a Universe at War. I did dialogue and cutscene scripts for another game. That was like a test. That was a test project to see if I could get the job, and I almost got that job, but they chose somebody else. But I still have the writing sample, so who cares? So I have like dialogue and cutscene scripts for a game called Grim Odds, which unfortunately apparently never shipped. So I guess it was, no offense to anybody working on that project, if you guys happen to be listening to this. I thought it was a great project, but I'm kind of glad that my name is not attached to it because it never shipped. so so it's, I mean, you know, I'm sad for you guys, but I'm kind of happy that like things worked out the way that they did for me. That sounds kind of bitchy, but it's true. I also programmed 2 games in 2015, which I completely forgot about. So I put that on my portfolio, and I still have those games available. Like I have all the programming scripts and everything, and the JavaScript files and everything still available, which is great. I'm like, oh my God, look at all the stuff that I did. I wrote 3 super short stage plays, and I also wrote a mini musical with like the libretto and the book, and then I have a score not by me but by my sound designer, which is great. I did a lot of directing. I've directed 5 productions now, 2 of which were readings, staged readings, 2 of which were slam poetry performances, and 1 of which is like a full-on devised production. And I'll have my 6th directorial credit or director's credit this fall when I direct some plays for the 10-Minute Play Festival, which is going to be great. So that's great. Also did a lot of editing since 2012, although I skipped some years. Editing, producing, and film directing some student films. I produced 3 projects for 3 different production companies, all of whom are indie, you know, so I'm not trying to like act like I'm working for Bad Robot or anything, but still, like I got that done in 2013, and one of those producing jobs actually was me working for ehow.com, which is great. And then this past 2017 in the fall, I did a lot of editing, so I now have some editor's credits under my belt, which is amazing. Even though they're like personal projects, there's still something I can put in my portfolio and I can continue to work on during the summer just to hone my skills. I have a lot of dramaturgical credits, I've done a lot of dramaturgy. I've done full protocols for the Addams Family full production, for Titus Andronicus as a classical production, for Creeps as like a small studio production. I've done dramaturgical notes and protocols for 4 playwrights, and I've done like dramaturgical work in total for 5 playwrights. And so I have protocols and notes and portfolio materials from all of those experiences. And so in dramaturgy, directing, producing, editing, theater directing, stage plays, game writing, vlogging, and podcasting, audiobooks, novels, and anthologies, I have a lot of credits. And I didn't realize how much I was actually doing, even though I'm recording this, with you guys, for you guys, for myself. I'm really hard on myself a lot of the time, and I really have to learn to not be that hard on myself. So I'm actually super excited to see from here where my career is going to go for 2018 and then for 2019. I'm just amped about it. So I did put all that together. I didn't mean to go into like all of that long backstory, but that's something that I did do this week, is that I developed my creative portfolio and I organized it. And so I'll now be literally producing another page on my author page and any other page where I have some credits to show literally all the materials that I have available and to show my creative talent and prowess. However talented that might be or might not be is going to be up to you guys, but it's something that I can show. And it just makes me happy that even I set out in 2011, like without even really moving into my identity, to establish like some sort of media company. And then over the course of the years, that idea evolved into a bigger idea comprised of that basically would become me wanting to establish a company that published novels, that wrote, produced, and published games, and that wrote, directed, produced, and marketed / sold films. And then I also said I would throw theater training in there just to help me be more well-rounded in all the arts that I was interested in. And it's just amazing that I've been able to actually direct my path towards those things, even in the time wherein I was a stay-at-home mom and my career prospects looked a little bleak because I couldn't see past the day-to-day grind of mothering an infant and then mothering a toddler. And I thought like I would never be able to get back into a working role as a mother. I don't know why I thought that. I have to say I definitely had some outside sources contributing to that perception of how my life had changed forever, whatever. But even when I was home for, 2 to 3 years with my child, actually, yeah, like 2 to 3 years total. And I was out of school at that time, I still continued vlogging. I still continued, well, not really vlogging, but blogging is what I meant to say. I continued to write and develop my work and my writing. I continued to develop my intellectual properties. So even if I wasn't publishing novels, I was still creating novel franchises and keeping them on my IP list and on my development slate. And then in 2015, pretty much all I did in 2015, even with, I think my daughter was 4 months all the way up to a year and 3 months old in 2015. Throughout that whole year, I was able to explore game writing finally in a very real way, in a way that I hadn't explored since like 2009 when I was sort of dabbling in game design. And then in 2016, I went back to graduate school and reestablished myself. And then I've been kind of kicking ass ever since. So I really underestimated myself these past few years. And I realized by putting my portfolio together, by keeping up this podcast, that I am making progress and that I need to just like chill the hell out, basically, and not be such a perfectionist. So, yeah, props to me. Yay. Even though, like I still feel the itch to keep going and going, I'm going to take this moment to just feel good. So let's get into the goals for this summer, because I had like little, week update preamble thing. It took a little bit longer than I thought it would, but that's okay. So the first thing I'm going to do in terms of kicking ass and taking names this summer is to rest myself and love myself and take care of myself. Self-care is literally the number one priority on the list. That means relaxing, sleeping in as much as I need to sleep in, cooking, because I just need to get back into that. I really miss cooking. I really miss burning it up in the kitchen. These lovely Mexican and what else have I been ordering? Korean restaurants around here have been really helping me out when the sister just doesn't have time to cook this semester. But this summer is going to be a different story. I'm going to get back into that. I'm so serious about my self-care, y'all, that I actually literally made a self-care schedule and a guide. Like, that's how manic I am, I think, in general, but just about life. Relaxing, just not feeling as though I have to push toward any crazy ass goal, at least for the first couple of weeks. And just chilling. That's my main thing. Getting my afro back in formation, that hasn't seen the light of day in a few months. I've just been rocking the braids under the scarf type of deal. Just doing everything that I need to do to just love myself, get back in touch with my inner child and my inner peace, basically. And then, of course, like I want to get into things like meditation. I have been staying up on a spiritual practice, which is great. And then, but also like really refocus again on like health, including like how I treat my body and what I put into my body. That's going to be a big thing this summer. So I'm excited about that. Okay, now let's get into the real tea, basically like what I'm here to record about and what, you guys might want to know. What are my actual creative intellectual project goals for this summer? So number one is to polish, publish, and market the 2054 anthology, which is already on its way, basically. And if I'm looking off the screen, it's not because I'm distracted. It's because I'm reading right off of my goal list here. I'm going to finish, and hopefully edit Hollow Point, which is book number 3 in Books of Ezekiel. The Haunt, which is book number 4 in the Books of Ezekiel. I want to also finish Loosey Goosey and Rose and John Doe's, which are books 0 and 1 in the Hitman of Happily Ever After series. As a bonus, and this is if I'm writing every day and I'm cooking like, 3,000 to 7,000 to 10,000 words a day, I would love to finish the prequel novel for the Books of Ezekiel series called Wolves, Ash, and Ember. And I would also love to continue writing the Asylum series. And hopefully, I'm hoping that I'll be able to settle on a final structure for that series as well this summer. For world building, I will be researching and adding sections to the story Bible for the Asylum series, for the Books of Ezekiel world, and for the Never After world. And the Never After world includes the Hitman of Happily Ever After series, the Godsman series, and the Forever Files series, which I haven't really been talking about the Godsman and the Forever Files, but those will be, I hope, on the docket towards the middle/end of next year. I mean, if I could churn out these books like right now, I would. But again, I'm trying to stick to my deep focus commitment. So, I'm just trying to hang in there. And right now, if I can't work on the actual Godsman series and the actual Forever Files series, I'm just going to at least do research and light reading, fun development, and fun world building for those series. So I'm sort of getting my rocks off in that way. Creative Uni this summer is going to be completely on fleek. It's probably going to focus primarily right now on TV writing through several courses that I have just on deck and ready, through a lot of books that I have and that I've invested in. And in terms of putting all those principles and those things that I'm learning into practice, I will be doing that actively with the Pendragon project this summer with my co-writer. So that's really exciting. I will also be trying to focus on writing my horror script and finishing the Sandman horror script, and that I also have courses and books on that. The next priority is film editing and just getting a lot of practice doing my editing and re-editing and polishing and engaging in more film editing projects, because if anything, if I have to work for anyone or with anyone, I think editing is probably like the thing that I want to do as like a day-to-day job. Like that's probably what I really would love to enjoy doing. Aside from like being a producer, making up TV series and pitching them, but I'm nowhere near that point in my process and in my journey. And then if I have time, I do also want to do the game design syllabus that's a part of my Creative Uni for the summer. So we'll see if I can get all those things done. I do have pretty much 15 full weeks of just bliss and happiness and just me doing me and me focusing on the things I love to do. So we'll see what happens. But those are my high goals for Creative Uni. For the Bohemian Badass, the primary goal this summer is to finish the graphics rebranding of the company, preparing the Bohemian Badass for its launch. And that preparation actually includes a lot of stuff. It includes getting the website up and running. It includes developing some lead magnets and some free challenges, free workbooks, free, maybe a free course, just like a lot of opt-ins. And then also preparing ahead of time a lot of podcasts as well as a lot of blog posts so that I have content that I'm consistently posting every single week or even several times a week, not only throughout the summer as of launch, but also throughout the semester during the year. So that's actually that will probably be about 50% of what I'm doing this summer. And then I would love to be able to launch the Bohemian Badass on July 1st. If not on July 1st, I would love to be able to launch August 1st, but no later than August 1st. So stay tuned for that. I'm super excited for that reboot. New Adult Noir will be resuming activity this summer, albeit I have changed the focus of New Adult Noir in terms of the kinds of giveaways and the kinds of promotions that I will be engaging in on the blog. I do want to do some more book blogging and book reviews, and as I read more books in my spare time this summer, that will be happening, and I'm excited about that. I also just want to make my giveaways a little bit just more curated, just sexier, have a smaller number of authors who are participating in those things, or maybe just even do like one-off giveaways from the blog. Like, I really want the book blog to be a lovely hub for readers, a resource for information, for really great prizes, for discounted books that are in the sci-fi, fantasy, horror genres, but that are also dark and gritty. So I'm just trying to kind of take a step back and find a way to rebrand New Adult Noir, and I think I will start that off by doing a really sexy giveaway. And I haven't really thought of the actual like qualities or characteristics of the giveaway quite yet, and I'm not really sure which genre I'll be focusing on, but that's something that will be forthcoming, that if I don't get up and running by the end of June, I hope to have running at some point during the summer in July and August. Podcasting, I'll just be keeping up with my Epic Fantastical Journey podcast, which I just remembered I did not do an intro for today. I probably just need to have a recorded intro that I just put up there every single time. So I'll be keeping up with the podcast. Now that graduate school is over, you guys will be getting the podcast every single Monday, probably, hopefully, first thing in the morning or sometime in the afternoon, early afternoon. Weekly installments for this podcast. So I'm excited to focus on that. And I'm also, just FYI, I really am looking into creating a really sweet, cute introduction to this podcast that doesn't only have my voice talking about what I talk about here, but like an actual musical introduction. So I already did some shopping on this place called hooksounds.com. Is that what it's called? Yeah, hooksounds.com. And I found 4 potential podcast intros, like musical intros that I really want to look into. But only really one of them I am seriously looking at for this particular podcast. The other 3 selections I'll be looking at as potential introductions for the Bohemian Badass podcast. Marketing goals. I will be definitely working hardcore on my Patreon page because I do need to update the milestones, the rewards, and the goals. It's still up and running, ready to go. So if you are interested in supporting not only this podcast, but also the endeavors and the growth of Rebel Ragdoll LLC, which includes novel publishing, filmmaking, and game design, particularly focused on women and disenfranchised and underrepresented communities, definitely feel free to go to the link below and drop us $1, $2 a month. It's less than a coffee a month. It's really less than most things you pay for a month. And you'll be supporting a really great cause, helping Rebel Ragdoll to grow and to become self-sustaining, which is great. But just FYI, I will be continuing my work on the Patreon page, making sure that I'm just like, being on point with all the wonderful updates and things that are happening at Rebel Ragdoll. And also just making sure that people are really clear on what they're supposed to be getting, depending on the kind of donation they actually make. So there you go. I will also be continuing sort of this publish your thing course that I've been taking, that I've talked to you guys to death about. But I am seriously considering doing a deep rebrand of my author website at some point before the quadrimester is over. And the rebrand is not really dealing with anything else except for the actual look of my website. So, I will still be focusing on dark, gritty, noir, witty, sci-fi, fantasy, thriller, crime noir, etc. But I have recently just gained a lot of skills in the DV software, which is like a really great web design software that works well with WordPress. And I just want to upgrade. I love my site as it is, but compared to some of the other sites out there, especially compared to the Bohemian Badass site as it's being revamped, my KolbeRrice.com site is rather static compared to those sites, even though I love it. So I kind of want to just get some more dynamic stuff happening there. And yeah, that'll probably happen at some point in August, I would say. So look out for that. And then finally, just back to the personal, and I'm not going to get too deep into the personal stuff, but I will continue my financial education with crypto, with investments, with stock, with, all the different things that I am trying to investigate and really avail myself of with regard to being a sustainable, very comfortable full-time artist. Because you guys know, for me personally, I do not believe in maintaining the broke artist stereotype. I want to break through that. And I think the way to go and the way to deal with that stereotype and fight against it is not just to create enough content that is helping you to support yourself and your business, but I also believe that we need to just get more serious about our savings, our stock portfolios, our investments, our mutual funds, our cryptocurrency, our real estate investments, the ways in which we can use our real estate investments and our businesses as, entities to increase our total net worth and increase the security of our nest eggs. So I really do want to investigate more fully the ways in which artists can be independent and self-sustaining without completely freaking out over how many book sales they have for this quarter. Because sometimes self-sustaining artists who sustain themselves on the merit of their work, and there's nothing wrong with that, but essentially their work, their books, their games, their films are what pay the bills, right? And when you have that kind of stress and pressure over you, it becomes sometimes even more oppressive than that job you just left. You know what I'm saying? Because you're now publishing for profit, and as opposed to publishing for pleasure and for the passion. And I feel as though, and this is not me tanking the publishing for profit idea. I think that's great, but I do think that artists and especially novelists, and I've actually seen this with a lot of my favorite novelists who are super prolific, they actually get burnt out over the years and they have to take a step back. And at that point, they do have the flexibility financially to step back because they put in all that work. But for me personally, I would love for a lot of my income to come from my art, but I don't want all of it coming from my art. I would like to honestly just be able to live on dividends at some point, which means that I would have to make a lot of money. But notice J.K. Rowling, for example, not saying that we're ever all going to be her, but she doesn't have to put out a book every month in order to make sure she can eat. Like, she had her success and now she has savings, investments, merchandising, different intellectual properties and different licensing properties out there that are making money and working for her. So I really do want to get into the more nitty gritty or the nittier grittier side of the financials of being an artist and just literally find a way to monetize every single thing that you do as an artist and create multiple streams of income that are both active and passive. Because once you have an active stream of income and you're depending 100% on that active stream of income, which requires you to keep producing, it's essentially, you might as well just go and work a job at that point, I guess. But again, it's not me coming down on that. I'm just saying it would just be nice to be able to, like, if you wanted to take a year off from writing or publishing, maybe you will never break from writing, but if you wanted to not publish for a year, you should be able to do that with your other investments and your other nest egg things that you're doing. So this summer, in conclusion, will be about exploring those possibilities and building up my own personal stability and my knowledge in those areas. So that's basically what I'm going to try to get done this summer. It is a lot. There is a lot of novel writing happening, a lot of world building happening, a lot of creative university happening, a lot of script writing happening. Actually, I should probably add the scripts that I want to write this summer to this pile. And then, just even though this is sort of tacitly stated, there's going to be a lot of reading happening. Just reading of fiction, of nonfiction, research books, creative inspiration books. A lot of scripts will be read this summer, including a couple of plays. Some will be read for pleasure. Others will be read with a very close critical eye. There will be a lot of TV binge watching and film watching this summer as well. Because I love TV and I love film, but also, like, I do want to look and analyze these things from a critical perspective. So I do have worksheets and stuff that I am drawing up for myself that will help me break down, for example, an entire TV season, an entire episode, a pilot, etc. So everything that I do, even though I want to focus mostly on self-care, relaxation, and engaging with the things that I love to do, will ultimately end up becoming like ninja training for myself in these different creative areas. So I'm excited about that. And not to mention, of course, I will be engaging in some sort of hands-on hobbies like crocheting, drawing, coloring, just things that I don't really have to think about. And I also will be enjoying the summer with my little girl. So I'm excited. I think we're going to finally do the swim lessons this year, and maybe also get her into a karate class for kids if they do have that available. So for her age. So that's basically that, guys. I am super amped. I am so excited that all of this is over. I'm actually going to go and celebrate by like cooking up some delicious shrimp. It's just going to be yummy and scrumdiddly-umptious. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just here for it. And, thanks for sticking with me through this whole process and just like, I don't know, just being amazing and awesome. It's not easy being an independent creative, especially as a single mom. And so I am definitely endeavoring towards kicking ass in every single way possible. And I'm just excited that graduate school is pretty much over. I am excited. I am here for it. And I feel as though between now and this time next year, I feel in my gut that there will be some massive changes happening in my creative career and my progress. So I will keep you guys posted. As long as you keep coming back, you guys will know what the skinny is. But this is the epic, fantastical journey of a Black female sci-fi writer, always hustling, always grinding. And I just want to remind you guys to keep it indie, stay badass, keep creating, and I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.